Welcome back to the C Morning Show right here on C Today. It's time for marking our second talk show of the day, where Thailand has been a source, transit, and destination country for human trafficking. This includes forced labor. This issue has been particular concern for the Thai government. The Thai National Screening Machanism, or NSM, aims at identifying and protecting refugees in Thailand and developed the draft notification of the Protected Persons Screening Committee. However, rights group and refugees are expressing concern that many worthy hopefuls will be turned down or feel too frightened of arrest and deportation to even apply. We now have Fortify Rights Senior Advocacy Specialist Patrick Phongsathorn to discuss more about this and how much issues may lead to the creation of NSM that falls short of international human rights standards and results in the forced return of resettlement of refugees. Good morning, Patrick. Thank you so much for being here in our show. It is a pleasure to have you on board this morning. And before we deep dive into Thailand's new national screening mechanism, can you elaborate more of the image regarding the country's migration and refugee situation in your country? And I have a little data right here by the UNHCR. By the under-revocation of June 2023, there's about 90,337 refugees right now in your country alone. How has it been thus far now in the landscape in Thailand?
I'm really pleased to be with you today. That's right. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, estimates that there are 90,000 refugees from Myanmar in the 9 refugee camps along the border with Myanmar. They've been there for many years, since the 80s, in fact. You also have a smaller population of what we call urban refugees. So refugees coming from many different countries who come to Thailand because Thailand, as you know, is such a transportation and tourism hub. They come from further afield than Myanmar. For instance, they come from Afghanistan or Syria or even Iraq. So as well as these groups of refugees, we also have new arrivals who have come from Myanmar since the deadly coup in 2021. And they're about, we don't know actually the figures because the Thai government and UNHCR isn't counting how many people, but we estimate that that's in the tens of thousands. Yeah.
And Patrick, going back to the 1981, again, Thailand has won its second Nobel Peace Prize for its part of humanitarian and non-political efforts in Southeast Asia arising from the boat, as you are dubbed, or Thailand is dubbed as the boat of people. Now, we know how important, you were saying that Thailand is becoming the hub, the transit, especially for the Southeast Asia region. So then, how important is Thailand's role for many migrants and also refugees across the region?
Yes, so Thailand is, as I said, it's a major receiving country for refugees. It's also a major receiving country for migrant workers. And those are two quite separate categories of people who are moving around the world. In terms of migrants, officially, Thailand has 2.6 million, just over 2.6 million official migrant workers, largely, again, coming from Myanmar, but also coming from Cambodia and Laos. So it's a major country for migrant workers as well, and millions of people in this region depend on the Thai economy for their livelihoods and for the well-being of their family through remittances that they send home. Yeah,
and how does Thailand's present status of the non-party to the 1951 UN Convention relating to the status of refugees or its 1967 protocol affect this?
Yeah, so it's we recommend that Thailand ratify the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 protocol as quickly as possible, because it would give Thailand's laws a grounding in the best international law, which is the 1951 Refugee Convention. But regardless, Thailand is still has still got international legal obligations, even though it hasn't signed the 1951 convention. It still can't send people, refugees, especially back to situations of torture and persecution. It also has other certain legal obligations, regardless of the fact that it hasn't signed the Refugee Convention.
Yeah, especially with Thai and Myanmar and the borders, and the Burmese refugees were trying to seek safe haven or refuge in Thailand. But how is it thus far now, especially with the geopolitical tension is very heightened in Southeast Asia region? People are seeking refuge in Thailand. What about the Thai nationals and the citizens themselves have to live, side by side with the refugees?
Right. Yeah, we've had some pretty major influxes here of Myanmar refugees since the coup. There's been heavy fighting going on the other side of the border in Karen State in Myanmar. And many people have fled over to Thailand seeking safety and seeking shelter from bombs and shells and other conflict. Thai people have been extremely hospitable to these refugees, and they've provided food and shelter. Unfortunately, the Thai authorities haven't been so hospitable. They've been keeping them in what they're calling temporary safety areas along the border, which don't meet international humanitarian standards. And the Thai military has prevented international groups such as UNHCR and also human rights groups such as Fortify Rights from accessing those temporary safety areas. So we really hope that in the future we'll have more access to those people and that they'll get all the aid that they need. But unfortunately, the situation is largely being controlled by the Thai military.
And also we've also read some of your letters and also articles by Fortify in regards to a lot of refugees are very afraid to even go to a clinic because they're afraid to be stopped over by the police or even the military. How is it the situation on par on ground, what you've seen and what that the people other people in the world can't see?
Yes, definitely. I mean, this research that Fortify Rights released last week was really revealing in that we spoke to many refugees in the border town of Mae who told us that because of their lack of legal status in the country, in Thailand, they're really afraid to access basic public services like healthcare, and actually have been targeted by Thai police officers for arrest, detention, and unfortunately extortion as well on their way to healthcare clinics.
And do you think then, Patrick, with the new national screening mechanism, you were talking about illegal status, the new national screening mechanism has been implemented recently. So do you think this is a solution? Is it a breath of fresh air? And what kind of challenges that will pose to see in the asylum program provided by UNHCR?
Yes, Caroline, it could be a solution, but it needs to undergo major changes. The national screening mechanism, as you said, it came into force in September. It's been talked about for many years, since 2016, I think, and finally it came into force in September. But it has some major problems in it. One is that it's not accessible to everyone. There are certain groups who will be automatically screened out of that process and won't have access to legal status under the national screening mechanism. One group is migrant workers. They won't have access to this kind of protection. Another group is individuals considered to be threats to national security. But unfortunately, the Thai government has really clarified what they mean by individuals who are threats to national security. And so it's a kind of blanket term, and we're not sure exactly who they're considering, but we'll be monitoring who they'll be considering. And for those individuals, they won't be able to actually even understand why they've been screened out, and they won't be able to appeal that decision. Another major problem is that despite us now having the national screening mechanism, the Immigration Act remains the highest law in Thailand in terms of managing migration and refugee flows. And unfortunately, the Immigration Act criminalizes what they call illegal entry and stay. So it criminalizes basically refugees coming to Thailand. So that's a problem that needs to be resolved before the NSM can be effective as well.
So my following question then, Patrick, for those that is screened out or is not acceptable in this program, what will happen to them?
It's a really good question, Caroline. I think what will happen to them is that they'll remain in the same precarious legal situation that they are in currently, where they have no legal status, no legal rights in Thailand, where a lot of refugees are afraid to leave their home for fear of arrest and detention and possible forced return. So, this lack of legal status, although it may seem like a technical thing to many people, it also unlocks a lot of rights, a lot of rights in terms of access to public services, health, education, livelihoods. And it also, it's a major, having legal status in a country prevents you from being sent back to torture, persecution, and possible death.
And that is why that you are there, and also with the Fortify work to ensure human rights for all. And how can you recommend, this program align with the policies, also with international human rights law and standards?
Yeah, so we actually sent a letter to the Prime Minister back in December with the several recommendations on how the NSM could be changed to make it be in line with international law and standards. A major part of that is to remove these exclusionary clauses from the National Screening Mechanism to allow as wider access as possible to the National Screening Mechanism as possible. So we want to see, refugees, we want to see migrant workers have the option to seek the protection of the National Screening Mechanism. We want, new arrivals coming to Thailand since the coup in Myanmar have access. We want a group such as the Rohingya to have access to this kind of protection in Thailand. And so I think we need to see some changes to that legislation to ensure that it has as wider coverage as possible. And to give it really the strength of international law, Thailand really should now start taking steps to sign and ratify the Refugee Convention.
And definitely all these refugees usually are, they came packed as families, so not only adults, there's also children, and the children have the right for a school education and such as healthcare too. Now, amid the global situation of migrants and refugees, how can other sectors extend aid and address and help address the crisis, especially for the minority groups?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, it's just seeing each other as humans and recognizing human needs. So we all need food, we all need water, we all need shelter. We all want our kids to be able to go to school and access healthcare. So I think recognizing that as the starting point for policy decisions is a really important thing. Private sector can also be a part of that, in pressuring the government to register refugees and to allow those refugees to be part of the economy. They can be major contributors to the economy as well. So private sector can definitely get involved. And then regular citizens can also call on their governments to respect refugee rights. And regular citizens can also, make donations to organizations that are helping refugees, such as UNHCR and many other organizations that are doing great work on the ground.
Right, and of course, thank you very much, Patrick Phongsathorn, the Fortify Rights Senior Advocacy Specialist, to be on board with us right here in our show. And I think every step forward is a light in the dark tunnel, and hopefully all the solutions will embark to a greater life for all people, especially in Thailand. Thank you very much for your time, Patrick.
Thank you, Caroline.
All right, guys, we're up for another short break right here at the